Hey everyone, Ben here. Thanks for tuning in into today's episode. This recording is exactly why I love what I'm doing. Talking with Jurgen Appelo, whose perspective on organizational design is a bit differently from mine, made it a really exciting one to record. We're unpacking Jurgen's pattern-based approach to organizational design called Unfix. And if you're enjoying this podcast, why not give it a rating on your player or refer it to someone who might like it as well? But enough of the intro, let's jump right into it.
Hey Jurgen, viene da Rotterdam, un pioniere con un grande plan, dal software alla gestione agile, ha scritto le regole, il mondo lo segue ormai. Con Unfix, rompe lo schema, niente più cornici per giocare al sistema.
Hey Jurgen, welcome to the podcast. So glad having you here.
Hello, Benjamin. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Sure. What would such a podcast be without inviting you to the show?
I don't know. You tell me. You had many other interesting guests.
It would be bad. It would be bad. We have so many mutual followers on LinkedIn and on the other social media pages that it would be a shame if I did not invite you. Also, since you're doing all of that Unfix stuff, I really need to learn about it, so maybe we can cover that on the episode. But first, before we dig into that, I assume the 5 people not knowing you yet, would you be so kind and give us a short introduction of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So my name is Jurgen Appelo. I'm from the Netherlands. Rotterdam is my hometown. I am originally a software engineer, turned into a development manager a long time ago. And then I wrote about how to be an agile manager, implementing Scrum and other agile practices. That became a book, Management 3.0, big hit in the agile community. I was very happy with that. And then I went my own way as a writer, a workshop trainer, and so on. I've been doing that for 15 years, wrote a couple of other books, Managing for Happiness, Startup, Scaleup, Screwup. Recently I published a novel, completely different kind of project. There is a little bit of a hint of agile in there, I must admit. And now I'm working on a pattern library called the Unfix model.
What is a pattern library?
A pattern library is like a box of Legos, where you have to decide what you want to build because the blocks can be turned into anything. And that contrasts it with frameworks that are fully built solutions. I often compare that with Playmobil, which is traditionally one of the competitors of Lego. With Playmobil, you get a whole castle out of the box, and then you can play with the castle, but you cannot turn the castle into a spaceship. That's not the concept of Playmobil. So it's a static structure, and it can be fun. You can get a long way with the framework, but ultimately, if you want to make anything you want, you'll have to move over to Lego and use building blocks. And that is a nice analogy of frameworks versus pattern libraries. I think many organizations have found out that with frameworks, they're stuck with rigid structures. That is in the word frame of framework. That is the whole point of a framework. It can help you to have this frame that is static and rigid and gets you started in some way. But as I said, pretty soon organizations find out that they need a bit more, they need more flexibility, and then they move over to pattern libraries, which seems to be the big movement going on in the community worldwide. We have also collaboration superpowers and liberating structures and team topologies and several other examples that are more like pattern libraries rather than rigid frameworks.
But do they really move into pattern libraries, or do they do their own operating system, like creating their own stuff out of nothing?
Well, it requires a bit more thinking, and that makes it difficult for people. So the very first pattern language was created by Christopher Alexander. He came up with the term pattern language. In, I believe, the 70s of last century. He wrote a book called A Pattern Language, and this was about urban planning and design. And he identified good practices in cities, such as the promenade is a good thing to have, or a public square is a good thing to have, etc. He had 253 of these patterns that he simply observed in livable, friendly, nice cities around the world. But then it is up to an urban planner to use that box of patterns, that language, to create or improve another city elsewhere. You cannot just copy paste a map of another city. There is no framework for implementing a city. It is all building blocks. And yeah, that makes it a bit harder compared to frameworks, because with frameworks you can teach people how to implement them and then certify them, that they understand the framework correctly, etc. With a pattern language or a pattern library, there's more required of the person who creates their own way of working with the patterns. They have to understand how to connect them, what works well together, what not, and everything depends on context. And that is why I think some organizations, lazy as they are, have preferred frameworks in the past because, oh my God, you need to think when you use a Lego box. What am I going to build? And that makes it harder.
Yeah. I experienced the same with clients that I work with. Back to the Lego example. Can you give me an idea of what such a Lego brick could look like? What is a pattern, for example? If you could give an example.
Yeah, so a pattern can be anything that is relatively small and can be copied as an idea from another organization. For example, some organizations out there do swarming of teams, where teams go to the features or the objectives that they would like to contribute to, or individual people actually, and then they form teams around these tasks or objectives for a while, for maybe a week or two, for the duration of a sprint, or until the objective is done, and then the team disbands and people form new teams around other objectives. This has been successfully done at various companies around the world, which is sort of the opposite of what we have been taught with Scrum, where the work flows to existing teams, where the teams are already there, and then you sort of try to match an amount of work in an available time box or something. This is the opposite. This is where people flock to the work instead of the work going to the team. So these are two options. I'm not saying that either of these is best. It depends on your context, on your people, on other things going on in the organization. But these would be two patterns, you could say, that are mutually exclusive. You do either one or you do the other. And then if you choose one or the other, like for example, if you choose the flocking, the swarming, then you have a couple of other patterns that you could combine with that one. One is the mission team. That is a pattern in the Unfix language. That is a team, relatively small, that is together for the duration of one mission. That is how we define it. And once the mission is achieved, or the team gives up on the mission, then the team stops existing, and they could form another team around a new mission. So yeah, the building blocks depend on each other to some extent, and people, as I said earlier, people have to be smart about how they use them and combine them.
It really seems like the hardest part is to see what building block you want to take for what purpose.
Yeah, that's why we have coaches and consultants, I suppose.
Okay. So how would you describe the path of cultivating the ability to really know what building block fits to what type of problem? How would you expect someone to start?
How does one start with Lego? You start playing. You
Yeah.
start looking at examples because usually people need inspiration. So that is actually what the Lego company itself understands. So they do not actually sell individual building blocks, or it is not very common. You can purchase them, but mostly people buy sets, predefined sets, like a Star Wars spaceship or a farm or a hospital, whatever, in a certain theme. And that is a starting point. You could say, we use the term starter kit ourselves. So we already connected a number of patterns together, so you have a complete picture that looks a bit as if it is a framework, because you could sort of install it, but there are individual patterns. You can break it apart and then reconstruct something else, or replace individual parts, which is not what you can do with a traditional framework. That was not the point, because with frameworks such as, well, take the scaled agile framework, for example, very famous. The word is in the name. If you don't have iteration planning, you do not have safe. You cannot just take that part out. It is part of the framework. There are things that are essential. They literally call it essential safe, which is the smallest version of safe. You must implement that, otherwise there is no scaled agile framework. So there are a number of things that are irreplaceable in a framework. It's the same with bicycles. I'm from the Netherlands. We have 25 million bicycles in this country and only 18 million people. Every bicycle has a frame. You can replace all the other parts, but if you replace the frame, you don't have the bicycle anymore. You have another bicycle. So that's the idea of a framework. Some things have to be there. And with a Lego box or Lego set, you can pull anything out. And as I said, turn a hospital in a spaceship or something like that. Yeah.
I was just asking because with Lego, like, how do you start with Lego? You try to build something, you think it's ugly, you might destroy it as a kid, like, and try to build something else. And usually that's not what you want a manager to do, right? You don't want to have someone just fuck around and try out with your company, because you have families to feed, you have to pay living wages, some existences depend on it. So you don't want to experiment too much on one side of it, right? On the other, I'm totally agreeing that you need to try out and experiment to a certain point and learn what fits, what doesn't fit, what shape you want it to be. Yeah. So I think that's a really challenging task to play Lego.
Absolutely, and that's why we call it safe to fail environments. And I've done that in the past. I introduced ideas of which I thought, I think this is going to work. It is worth a try. If it doesn't work, all right, we'll roll it back and try something else. It's not going to kill the company, so hey, let's go for it. And if you honestly admit from the start that it's an experiment, you don't know yourself, but it seems to make sense, then people are more willing to try.
Can you give me an example of a company that tried to build with the different patterns that Unfix is offering, and what their journey was like?
Sorry, my throat was acting up.
All good.
Excuse me. Your question was about companies that have examples, or? Okay, so one company is called Worldline. We know them pretty well because Willem-Jan Ageling is a speaker who also enthusiastically has tried Unfix patterns, and something that they have done, I mentioned before, actually swarming per sprint. So he wrote some blog posts about how they do that, where every sprint they have a larger team of 30, 40 people or something like that. I don't know the exact number of people. Where the entire super team has a cadence, and then for each sprint they flock towards the tasks that they would like to apply. I think that's a fantastic example of having mission teams in a larger organization, or as part of a larger team. And we call that larger team sometimes a turf, where this group of people is responsible for the same code base, the same product area, or something like that. But you can cut up the different people in different sub-teams. Other example is Pipedrive, which is one of the first companies that reached out to us, actually, where they have the Pipedrive agile framework. They created their own framework. Pretty cool.
I wonder how long the agile community will need to wait until they adopted it. And
Yeah.
there's a certification model on it. You can now have the Spotify framework.
Exactly. Yeah, well, I don't think that's going to happen. Well, fingers crossed.
No.
But it is a very inspiring example, because they did exactly what I suggest. They create their own way of working depending on their context. And in the case of Pipedrive, what was interesting there is they're in Estonia. There are a couple of startup scale-ups in that small market that are pretty famous. Wise, formerly TransferWise, Taxify, Skype, I think, is still there, etc.
And there's a bunch of interesting new fintech coming up from there as well.
Definitely. And so, as you can imagine, there's quite a bit of competition for talent in that small market. So their biggest problem was not losing great engineers. So they had to optimize for making this a great company to work for engineers. They literally asked the engineers, "What do you want? What would make you happy in terms of the way of working?" And so they came up with a number of things, like we would like some flexibility of missions, of teams. Sometimes work with this person, sometimes with the other person, not be the same team all the time. And also the team leads or the mission leads are always engineers. They have the lead for every feature. It's not a product manager, a product owner. It is a tech person taking the mission forward, and that helped them. Turnover dropped significantly, and that was a way of working optimized in their context. So these are two of the case studies we have online. We have plenty more. I must admit, I haven't been involved in recent case studies, so I'm mentioning it to somewhat older ones. But
I can totally see the Pipedrive example. So we're working with Pipedrive as well, and I'm pretty active within the Pipedrive user community. So I suggest features, I ask for bug fixes, I report bugs if I know them. That's just how I use products that I really like. I try the same with Riverside, what we use to record. I'm on their Discord and ranting about if things are broken, and I do the same with Pipedrive. And what I really like is that with Pipedrive, they are really responsive. So they're really quick. When something is not working, or when somebody asks for a certain feature, you're getting feedback really, really quickly. So feedback, either you get the feature or you don't get the feature because this and that, or whatever happens with your requests, whatever type of request that is.
Yep.
That is something that I really like.
Yeah, great.
Let me ask you, how did you came up with this? Did you just woke up at some point and just go like, oh, yeah, just give them bricks, or how was that?
I think a couple of things had to come together. There was first there was Dynamic Reteaming, a book by Heidi Helfand, where she describes that keeping the same people together for a long time is not always the best approach. Sometimes you want more flexibility. She sort of opened that possibility in the Agile community, because we had been quite dogmatic in our advice for 10, 15 years. Thou shalt keep thy teams together for a long time. Otherwise, you have to go through forming, storming, norming, performing every time. Turns out this is nonsense. Or actually, you can break that up. You can say, okay, we do that forming, storming, norming, performing at the turf level, at the super team level. That's where you are onboarded. That's where you make friends. That's where you form a larger team. And then they make sub-teams for specific missions, much as they do at airlines, for example, where there is a sub-team, a mission team for every flight. But the onboarding is done at another level, at a level higher for the entire group of flight attendants, etc. So other industries had discovered this long before, long before we did in software. So Heidi Helfand was one. There was team topologies by
Matthew Skelton, I think. And,
yeah,
I'm bad with names.
exactly. So. Team topologies guys came up with the four team types. We turned that into four crew types, as we call them, and I added three that I think are worth mentioning that I got from other sources again. And there was more going on. A visit to a hire the Chinese company had done a good number of years ago, which is a super interesting horizontally scaling company with only 2 layers of management and 80,000 people, which is incredibly inspiring. They basically are a market ecosystem inside of the hire corporation. And maybe one or two other insights, and that came together in early, I don't know, 2022 or something. And then I thought I need to draw this as patterns, because I was familiar with the concept of pattern languages, pattern libraries. I thought I need to turn these insights into organizational structure advice, because personally I thought that was what was missing in frameworks, was good advice on organization design, because I was very unhappy about what SAFe and LESS and the others were suggesting, and how Lacracy was totally ridiculously radical and on its way out, basically. And I thought we needed something less radical, more sensible, and that goes a step beyond what the frameworks offer. And yeah, that turned out to hit a nerve with people, and then we've been adding other patterns on top of that.
How many people would you say are? I'm not sure if you have the number. I didn't prep you with the question, but how many people would you say do you have in that Unfix community out there? How many people are out there using this?
Well, we have thousands of people, literally thousands, in community.unfix.com. So that's good. We have tens of thousands on the mailing list. I have no idea who is actually applying things, because I'm not keeping track of that. Sure, there could be lots of people who only like reading things and be inspired, and at the same time think, I have an organization where I cannot do that.
So you don't even have like licensing or anything, so you just like everyone could just go there, like on a Wikipedia, pick a pattern, use it. You would never know, you wouldn't get a dime out of it.
Yeah, no, the patterns are not protected. I mean, Christopher Alexander could not also protect the concept of the public square. I mean, it already existed. I cannot claim the rights to a pattern such as a mission team. It already existed. I just note that this is one idea, and I give it the name and the number and a nice looking card on the website, etc. Of course, there needs to be a business model somehow, so what we have been doing is 2-day classes for the last 2 years. That seems to be a bit on its way out in the industry at large. People have no time for 2-day classes anymore. Okay, fine, so we're switching to online learning. We're investing a lot of time in that these weeks, because people still want to learn, but people learn differently these days. So I'm putting out new modules, but the content, the ideas are the same. It's patterns, and we want to teach people how to use them.
So if I want to learn about Unfix, I would go into like a course or an e-learning or anything, and I would just learn patterns. I would just like
Yeah.
It's like reading Wikipedia for the sake of reading Wikipedia.
It's not just reading Wikipedia. So we now have an Unfix Foundation online course, indeed, which is videos and conversations with others. We have
Okay,
online
yeah.
meetups every now and then. There's exercises that people can do, and I am now making new content, which is also watching videos, chatting with AIs, exercises with AI. And some quizzes that I will have to that I will have to offer, because that's what people expect. It will be much more engaging than just reading a Wikipedia page, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. So I think it's quite interesting that we both experience the same development. We see the same development within the agile communities, that people would move away from frameworks, from like blueprints that you could just roll out, and they opt for different solutions. And also we see this in the terms of the job market, but also in the consultancy market. If you talk about agile coaches, if you talk about scrum masters. So I was wondering, since you've been there for a while and you anticipated it when coming out with Unfix, where do you think the whole industry would move, like the industry of organizational development would move within the next, let's say, 5 years?
Gosh, if only I knew. But I think the word agile is on its way out. There are memes on LinkedIn every week, agile is dead, etc. On the one hand, this is nonsense, because agile is so important nowadays. The agile mindset, the agile values and principles, they have never been so important as these days, with AI coming up and pushing management to be even faster, to change even faster with the organization. It is obvious that people need to be agile. At the same time, as others have said, Scott Ambler, for example, said the agile gold rush is dead. Yes, that is true. The people making money with agile certification and selling agile frameworks, that perhaps is dead. Well, maybe goodbye and good riddance. Some people would say. I won't cry a tear over that, to be honest. We are definitely moving into a new age. And I don't know exactly how things will be different. I do see that AI itself is having consequences on the way we work together. To give you one example, we had a couple of decades where teams were getting larger because projects got larger. The games industry is a very nice example of that. I'm so old that I remember games were made by 2 or 3 people. You had one programmer, one sound engineer or composer, and one visual artist, and that was it. Then you had a Commodore 64 or early PC game. Nowadays, it's teams of 100 people or more with budgets of hundreds of millions of dollars. However, there are mass layoffs in the games industry because a lot of work can now be delegated to computers, to AIs, just creating visuals and music off the shelf. You don't need a human composer for that anymore. It's a pity for those people. They will have to reinvent their jobs somehow, but the teams are shrinking with more work delegated to algorithms rather than human brains. And I think the games industry is just one example. We see that also elsewhere, where the extreme version of that would be one person orchestrating a team of AIs and moving work back and forth between them, which is something that is already happening with me, by the way, because I'm a person who does a lot of work by himself, but I have ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini and Midjourney and you name it, moving work between them. And
I know exactly what you mean. Like,
and then it's
60% of what we're doing here is out of the robot factory that works for me.
yeah, exactly. So then you can do more work that is actually fun. Like I'm working on videos now. In the past, I hated video editing. Truly, I despised it. That's why I'm so late to the online learning stuff, because I just had a big problem with editing video. There was always problems with video formats and problems with sound and so on. But AIs are solving all those problems that I had. It's now becoming enjoyable, actually, working with video. And so I noticed that myself, my work is changing, and other people have that too. And I think the same will apply to development teams and other production teams, where they see the smaller number of human faces and a larger number of AI chatbots and and other forms of AI collaborating with them.
But that is, on the other hand, directly linked to the whole industry of consulting that has evolved around scaled agile for, let's say, less or save. So I think if you're right, we would see less a shrinking market for those type of consultancy projects or transformations or org designs or whatever those people call themselves doing.
Yeah, I think so too, because there will be less need for standard frameworks and more need, I think, for patterns that are interchangeable and that you can where you can replace the building blocks. To give you one example, I was inspired by people who said, with the standard frameworks expect you to have a customer demos, for example. You see that in Scrum and in Safe, and then you're dependent on the schedule of the client when they are available. And it's, in the ideal situation, they're available at the end of the sprint, but the universe is not ideal. You have to adapt to their schedule, and that is annoying. But if you can actually create 10,000 virtual clients in the forms of AIs who mimic the behaviors of customers and who will then start evaluating your product, you could maybe remove 90% of the or find out 90% of the problems that would have been reported by a human that you need to wait for until they're finally available. You can click the button on and launch 10,000 AI agents right now, if you prepare that. So that significantly speeds up your development process, and then maybe you can see the human once per month, because you'll delegate so much to synthesized customers. And that's the same for any kind of process that could be sped up. Once you realize that not everything has to be done by humans, you can use computers, algorithms, for some part of that stuff that we've been doing as people.
So we would see way more efficient software development organizations.
I think so. Not everyone will do that, but some do.
Mm-hmm.
I read just last week, Jeff Sutherland of Scrum posted examples of people doing estimation and planning with AI, where every time they fed their conversations that they had as a team into an AI and taught it iteratively how well the forecasts of the AI were of those stories that they were developing. So the estimates, ultimately, they shrank until it took just 30 seconds for the AI to come up with estimates for the stories of the next sprint. Well, there you have reduced a lot of waste. No need to do planning poker or whatever anymore. You just you have a conversation with the team and upload it.
You know what I did at my second project that I had as a Scrum Master?
Tell me.
I stripped the estimation meetings and discussions almost completely away. We just kept the discussion part, like getting to know what we're about to do. And for the rest, we rolled dice and just filled in the numbers.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that was the story points.
yeah, that's one way of doing it.
It was exactly the same. Like, it wasn't better, but it wasn't worse than the previous estimations
I
that
can
we gave
imagine
away.
that. Yes, yeah, I can definitely imagine that. And that's why some people say, well, the time you spend on estimation is just waste. Just stop doing that.
Yeah.
But what if you can delegate it to an AI who does it in 30 seconds? Then
Yeah,
there
sure.
might be actual value in there. I mean, it's just 30 seconds. Why not? Just try it. It might be better than the dice. What the AI.
Oh yeah,
comes up with.
definitely.
Yeah.
And also, it's way easier to argue for it,
Yeah.
to make an argument for it, right? Say there's an artificial intelligence taking care of it, when actually the artificial intelligence sort of rolling dice on a probabilistic model, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
better dice than I use,
Yeah.
probably.
So those are two examples of using AI for customer demos, using AI for estimations. I've heard people using AI for retrospectives, which can also take quite a while in a decently sized team. So things are changing. The standard Scrum practices and patterns are being replaced as we speak, which I think is a good thing. The world is speeding up.
Yeah, I think so too. One thing that struck my mind is that thinking about more efficient software development organizations, like when I was going to university, there was the saying that if you want to always have a job, always be employed, you have to learn how to code because everyone needs software developers. Right? And we see that in the workforce that now people are being laid off. I'm not sure if that's due to AI. Some companies claim that it's due to AI, but their cash flow statement looks a little bit different than what they claim the reason is. However, I was wondering if we're going to see that on the job market as well, and what your opinion on it is.
Well, the thing with the current generation of AI is research shows that it lifts the lowest boats. So the people who are worst at their job, they benefit the most from using AI. Take writing, for example. There is no reason anymore to write crap, because you just let AI do the writing for you, and then at least it is readable. There is hardly any spelling or grammar issues anymore. Style is, you can just tweak that with the prompt. So anyone who sucked at writing has no excuse anymore. And they should just use AI. It will be decent. It will not be quality writing that a real professional writer would be able to produce. They don't benefit, or they benefit only very little from AI. They benefit in the sense that they can ask AI to give feedback on their writing, and then they see some interesting suggestions that maybe they had not thought of. That's how I have used AI, by the way, for my recent book. I fed ChatGPT every scene that I had written, and I asked it to give me feedback on style, and yeah, sometimes it has some good suggestions.
So the worst part is to be a mediocre writer or coder. If you're mediocre, you're just going to be faster, and then you need more clients, you need more work.
Well,
but you're not going to be better.
That is what is happening now with all kinds of jobs. That anyone who is bad is improving their skills, quote unquote, and is now mediocre or decent. And for some kinds of jobs, that is fine. I mean, there are a lot of texts that I have written in the past that didn't have to be like high quality prose. Sometimes it's just marketing copy of a description or a video or whatever. It's just very functional, the text that needs to be written. AI is perfect for that. So that saves me a lot of time, and I can focus on the things that I enjoy more. So you see that also with developers. There's a lot of code out there that doesn't have to be fantastic, perfect quality. It just needs to work. And it could be thrown away next year, but for now, decent is good enough. For that, you can use AI. And that means that some developers will not be developers anymore because their jobs are out. And others have to make sure that they're already good, and they have to keep using AI to be even better and stay ahead of the curve, because the AIs are getting better.
Have you thought about making the work of pattern matching, like matching patterns to certain problems or ideas or whatever the company wants to have, in a way that you have an AI that is listening to, let's say, a retrospective. Let's say 3 managers gather around and explore a problem that they want to solve, right?
Yep.
An AI like Whisper AI would listen to them and then browse the pattern library and look for the right patterns and offer them like 3 options where they want to go.
Yep.
And give them a reason behind it, like, why did I pick that option?
Yes. Yeah, that would be great. I would love to have that. Indeed, but it means that we need more corpus. We need more content to feed the AI so that it can give that advice. Because right now there is not sufficient knowledge available in a way that the AI can use that. In terms of the Unfix pattern library, but that is a matter of time, I'm pretty sure. So we just have to have more conversations, have it recorded and analyzed by AI, and then use that as the corpus on which it is trained. So this is definitely possible. I'm sure it will happen at some point.
If people want to learn more about your work, get in touch with you, learn more about Unfix, where do people find you?
Well, it's very simple, unfix.com. That's where the website is. And as I said, we have a community.unfix.com. So it's free. Just sign up. You'll get an invitation to join our next free meetup. And there we discuss patterns and other interesting insights around the Unfix library that we are developing.
Jurgen, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for doing this episode with me. It was great having you.
Thank you, Benjamin, for the invite. Pleasure.
All right, then, everyone, have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for making it to the very end of today's episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. It would be super cool to get some more feedback on what I could do to create a better listening experience for you. Drop me a comment on Spotify, let's meet on LinkedIn, or send me an email at info@stellarwork.com. All right, see you on the next one. Bye.
È Jurgen, viene da Rotterdam. Un pioniere con un grande plan, dal software alla gestione agile. Ha scritto le regole, il mondo lo segue ormai. Con un fix, rompe lo schema, niente più cornici per giocare al sistema. Come i mattoni di Lego puoi creare il tuo futuro, la tua strada da sognare. Con un fix, rompe lo schema, niente più cornici per giocare al sistema. Come i mattoni di Lego puoi creare il tuo futuro, la tua strada da sognare. Non un mattone alla volta, modelli di libertà, innovazione a volta, mission team pronti a partire. Un fix il mondo, nessuno può mentire. Tu, Jurgen, sei tu la via, cambiando le regole, trasformi la realtà. Massoni di cambiamento, brillano già nel mondo del lavoro. Sei la stella che va. Ai frameworks sono castelli che non volano, ma Jurgen ti dice se una navetta costruiamo. Tu scegli i pezzi, decidi la velocità nel gioco del lavoro, tu crei la tua libertà. Vede team che si uniscono con una missione, non aspettare più, è il tuo momento. Da bike drive alla scena agile, i modelli di Jurgen fanno sognare. Con un team, rompe lo schema, niente più cornici per giocare al sistema. Come i mattoni di Lego puoi creare il tuo futuro, la tua strada da sognare. Non un mattone alla volta, modelli di libertà, innovazione a volta, mission team pronti a partire. Un fix il mondo, nessuno può mentire. Tu, Jurgen, sei tu la via, cambiando le regole, trasformi la realtà. Massoni di cambiamento, brillano già nel mondo del lavoro. Sei la stella che va. Mai entra in gioco, la tecnologia va veloce, ma i modelli di Jurgen sono la voce. Dall'Estonia fino alle stelle, un fix il mondo con idee belle. Finale, prendi i tuoi Lego, inizia a costruire. Il futuro è luminoso, non c'è sogno da sfiorire. Jurgen Appelo, sei la chiave per un mondo dove il lavoro è lieve. Parliamo